We got a bidet!
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are talking about the new Indiana Jones movie. It's probably one of my, if not the most anticipated movie of the summer. I was very, very stoked to hear that there was going to be a new one. Probably mostly because I was hoping that they would, do better than Crystal Skull, because it kind of seemed like a rough one to end the franchise on, if that's what they were planning to do. So we're going to go ahead and talk to you a little bit about the movie, give you our thoughts on it as well, and then it's up to you whether you want to see it. And I kind of want to kick it off with admitting that I think we both love the movie. So it's going to be an interesting discussion because, in my opinion, the movie is not perfect. So I will talk about some of those things when we get to our opinion part of it. But I guess just to kind of tell you what the movie was about, we kicked the movie off with being in the past. So like the de-aged Indy, the one that is behind Sarah from the trailer. And the Nazis and Indiana Jones are looking for this special dagger that had, I think it was used to cut Jesus or something. Like it was supposed to have a
I think it was
connection.
supposed to have the blood of Christ on it to give you eternal youth or something like that.
Yeah, because well, one of the things that is in one of the previous indie movies is that you drink the blood of Christ from um, the Last Crusade. So they were looking for that, but turns out that it's a fake. And the one thing that the Nazis happen to have in their like big train of treasures is the Dial of Destiny, or at least half of it, because the Dial of Destiny was separated in two. That way, one half of it could always be protected while the other half goes wherever. So, like the first good chunk of the film is, you know, being excited about Indiana Jones. There's a ton of sequences here in the very beginning that just kind of gets you riled up for the movie. Because once he finds out that the piece is a thing, that it's actually on the train, he steals it, and then the next person steals it, and then uh, it's basically a back and forth on this device until eventually our villain of the film gets away with the well, no, he does not get away with the piece. Indy does, because okay, Indy is about to be like shot at gunpoint by the villain, and so Indy throws him a bag that supposedly has the half of the dial in it, and then he does this little sleight of hand thing where he keeps the half of the dial of destiny, and that's pretty much the opening section, probably a good 15-ish minutes. And then we go to the present day, where we see from the trailer him like all sprawled out in his lounge chair and whatnot. And he is I think I would do the same thing if I were in his shoes, but I think he's trying to be portrayed as a grumpy old man because he gets woken up by like college kids partying and he doesn't want the noise. So we kind of set his character up for, like I said, just being kind of an old guy that is living alone. He is no longer with his wife. They are separated because it seemed to be because he never would come home. Like he didn't spend enough time with the family, kind of a thing. So he is on his own. He is still a professor. He is still teaching. And while he's teaching in class, talking about Archimedes, there is this one person in the back that is not one of his students. Is the person that kind of slips in. And that is our support. I would consider her a supporting actress. I think Sarah would disagree and say that this is the main character as opposed to Indy, but Helena is her name. This is the woman that is supposed to be uh, Indiana Jones's goddaughter, or he's the godfather of her.
I would say you could have multiple main characters. It doesn't have to be just one person.
So I had to turn my volume up here. I could hardly hear you there. Um, but yeah, so she shows up in his classroom and then follows him back to a bar because he is retiring, and which is actually pretty funny. Like they give him a gift for retirement. As soon as he leaves the school, he gives the gift away to like a homeless person or something. So I thought that was kind of funny. It looked like a clock or something like that. But anyways, he goes to a bar. They meet up. She tells him about her dad, which is someone that accompanied him when he was trying to find the dagger way back when. Uh, they were there together trying to get that item, but they both got away with the Dial of Destiny, the half of it. And so she basically wants to finish what her dad started and find the rest of the dial. And she believes that Indy has the half that they had before. And so he takes her back to, I think it's at the school, and he goes back into his like safe area, safe as in like locked up, and all his valuables are in there. And so he shows her that he has it, and she takes it and runs. And we get that from the trailer as well. That can be seen there. This is where we eventually get into the chase scene with the parade with Indy on the horse. You see that in the trailer. But basically, eventually, what happens is the guy that was trying to steal the stuff from Indy way back when is here in the city trying to track down Indy. So they capture or kidnap him. They even they kill a couple of people at the school. So it's a school shooting. So that's kind of an interesting choice that they made there. But they basically try to kidnap Indy. He gets away on the horse, just like the trailer. So that kind of gets our villain back into the picture in present day. And the goddaughter, Helena, she takes that half of the Dial of Destiny and goes off to, was it Morocco? Was that where she went?
I want to say no, but I don't know what the name of the city
Italy?
was.
Maybe Sicily. I don't know. I don't remember where. But if you watch the trailer, that's the part where he's like whipping his whip around all over the place and tells them to get back, and then they pull their guns on him. He goes to that place because she is trying to sell it and make a lot of money. She lied to Indy about trying to finish what her dad started, and she's in it for the money. Whereas Indy is in it for this stuff belongs in a museum, which is what he's been saying about things in the Indiana Jones films since the beginning. Um, so Indy tracks her down. He finds her there. We get that moment from the preview, but what we don't understand from the trailer is that the bad guys meet up there as well. They're in the same room, the main bad guys. And so there's this like minor shootout. There's another chase scene where they're trying to get away. Let's see, trying to remember because some of the chase scenes are blending. I believe they get away, and then she says that she remembers what her dad wrote in his journals because the bad guys stole the journals. And she remembers an area like a latitude, longitude type thing, I think is how that she remembered it. Basically, it's a spot in the ocean that she remembers. And Indy's like, I know a guy that has a boat. And so they go to Spain and they go to the location that she remembers, and they have to dive deep down to a boat because that's apparently where another piece of this treasure is. It was a boat long ago that was supposed to get somewhere and it didn't, and
It was Archimedes' boat that they found the first piece in originally, but the divers didn't dive deep enough to find the second piece. They thought that only one piece was on that boat, but she essentially said there were 100 soldier skeletons on that ship, why would there be so many unless they were guarding both pieces? So that's why they know to dive deeper to the ocean floor there to get the second piece. Or so they think anyway, because they don't find the second piece there. They find something else.
And this is where Antonio Banderas' character comes into play. I kind of forgot he was even in the film. Honestly, I didn't remember. He is the friend of Indy's that has a boat. So he takes him out there to the ship. And so they go underwater, we know that Indy's afraid of snakes, and they think they see a shark in the water, but really it's a bunch of eels. And so that's basically, it's not a water snake. I totally understand, but it's very similar. So it can probably creep out Indy. It would creep me out too. And so they go down to the boat, they find the treasure, like the chest that has the treasure in it. And when they're on their way up, not only are they getting messed up with the eels, especially Indy, getting entangled with them, but they also see that there's a boat that approaches the boat that they took out there, and that is the bad guys once again. I forgot to mention also, when they left the area where Helena was trying to sell the device, they also picked up one of her friends along the way. He's a kid, as he plays a decent part later on. So they're on. What's his name?
Teddy.
Teddy. So they're on this boat with the bad guys. You know, they're held at gunpoint. They actually shoot and kill Antonio Banderas' character is trying to get Indy and the group to tell them what this treasure means, because they open up the little chest thing and then this block comes out and it's got like all these inscriptions on it, and Helena says that she knows what it is and she'll translate it for money, and our bad guy gives it to her, no problem, trusts her. But really she's just trying to distract him long enough so that she can take his cigarette and then light a piece of dynamite that's in her pocket so that they can get away. Now that I say that, it seems kind of far-fetched, but anyways, they are successful with it. They light one in the boat, and then they take the bad guy's boat, they being Indy, Helena, and the kid, they take the bad guy's boat back to shore. And from what she told the bad guys noticed that it's kind of a lie because they're heading in a different direction. What they find out, being Indy, their group, is that this block actually like was kind of false. Like what they see isn't actually what the treasure is. It's covered in wax, and so they light it on fire to melt all the wax, and inside the wax is where the treasure was, and it's like a disc that is a piece of the Dial of Destiny. And what was it, a part of the Dial of Destiny, or was it like a map to it?
It's a second map. So the first brick was telling you that the other half was basically an Archimedes tomb, but the second piece was telling you the actual location of Archimedes' tomb. So that's where the other half of the dial is.
Gotcha. So they head that way, and once they get there, the bad guys are not too far behind. At this point, the bad guy, Indy and Helena are in the streets of this new area that they're at. And Indy is like buying stuff at the market, trying to be a nice guy to get something for Helena and the kid. And they notice that the kid goes missing. And the kid goes missing because there's these kids in the street that are bullying him, and he kind of wants to one-up them and also steal their money. So he like bumps into the one kid that was giving him crap and pickpockets him for money. But when he goes to buy something, he notices that the bad guys are there and they kidnap him. So now Indy and Helena are separated from the kid and the villains, but Indy and Helena believe that they have to get to the treasure first. Even if it means that the kid could be harmed, they don't believe that he will be, but I mean, there's always the opportunity. So
Helena was worried he would get hurt, but Indy's like, they're not going to hurt him. They're going to use him as leverage. So they're going to keep him.
Right. So Indy and Helena get to the tomb of Archimedes. They do beat the villains to the tomb, and they open up the tomb, and it's very interesting. And this is kind of important. Okay, so when they open up and they see the skeleton of Archimedes, not only is the Dial of Destiny in there, but also there's a watch, like a watch from present day that is with Archimedes. And they're like, man, he must have been like a time jumper kind of a thing with the Dial of Destiny, because how could he have a watch when he was alive in like 200 something AD, and this watch wasn't developed until like 1,000 years later?
Part of that, though, is that Helena's dad, which was Indy's friend, who was so obsessed with the Dial of Destiny, part of his research was saying that you could go to essentially traveling through time, but there were only certain time fissions, I think is what they called it.
Yeah.
Little moments in time where you could travel between. So they knew about this ahead of time. They just thought he was crazy. And then seeing this watch on Archimedes, they knew that he must between that and on the tomb, there was a phoenix, but the phoenix had propellers, which hadn't been invented yet either at that part in time.
So
So
some
that was them proving out that the time fission jumping was an actual thing that could happen.
right. And so by the time this happens, the villains show up and a whole bunch of shenanigans happens. Um,
Kid was able to free himself and then get back with our normal group.
yep. Trying to remember what happens after this. I know. Oh, they shoot Indy, and so he gets shot like right here, and so he's like bleeding out. And they take him prisoner, and they take him and the dial complete, because and when they all get together, the bad guys take everything that they want and combine it, and they take Indy as well. So they take Indy, and then Helena and the kid Teddy go their separate ways, but they're trying to like follow behind the group so that they know where they're going, and then figure it out along the way what they can do to save them. And the bad guys take Indy to an airport, because the whole point of these Nazis getting the Dial of Destiny is that they want to turn back time to go back to World War II and basically fix all the things that went wrong for the Nazis so that they would win the war. And so they get on a plane, and they fly towards the location that the dial tells them to, and Indy tells them, like, something is wrong. You are wrong. This is incorrect. And they're not going to listen. And while that's all happening, Helena and the kid, Helena grabs a motorcycle and chases after the airplane that Indy and the bad guys are in, and she happens to get in through the landing gear. She gets in the plane, and the kid hotwires a plane and then chases after the villains and Indy as well. So now that we've got them covered, we can keep going with Indy and the bad guys. They find this fissure in the sky, and they go through it, and the plane is kind of going crazy. It's like malfunctioning a little bit. They're trying to restart the plane, but the engines like blow when they're trying to redo it. And so they're they got the plane under control, so they're not just plummeting to the ground, but they're kind of just gliding through the air. And what's interesting is that when they look around them, it does not look like the time frame that they're supposed to go back to. This was a time fissure that brought them back to Archimedes' time. And so they're seeing like a bunch of boats that are it's a battle. There's boats and like shooting at the castle. There's soldiers all over the place killing each other. But Archimedes comes out and he sees this airplane. Everybody thinks that's a dragon, which is kind of funny. But he goes to chase down the plane so that he can understand what's going on. And I believe So does he had like his own dial of destiny, right?
He was in the middle of
Like,
creating it.
right. So he goes out to the plane that eventually, I think it crashes, but Indy and Helena get out via parachute, like the trailer, which I think they hid this stuff in the trailer very well. Like, I was not anticipating them jumping out of an airplane in 200 something AD. But that's beside the point. So they land on the ground. Indy is still shot. He needs medical attention, but it's kind of weird because he kind of acts normal at times, but then at other times he's like, "Oh my God, I'm dying." Um, so when they're on the ground, he's telling Helena just to leave him. He's been studying this era like his whole life, and he just wants to die here in the era. And she's like, "Shut up, it's going to be a butterfly effect type thing where, history is going to be changed." And eventually Archimedes approaches them, and which I'm drawing a blank here. They talk a little bit. Indy still pleads that he needs to stay back, and then Helena is like, "I'm sorry, but I got to do this," and she like, knocks him out. Um, but also the villains, like when they crash the plane, Archimedes is going to check out the rubble, and on the dead Nazis, there is the watch that was in his tomb. So that's actually how he got the watch. Um, Indy, Helena, and the kids' plane doesn't malfunction or anything. So they're able to take that back through. This is all off screen because after Indy gets punched, it just time jumps back to being in present day and at home type thing. But I think we're led to assume that the kid picks up Helena and Indy and goes back into the fissure because it was closing up. Time was running out. And then we end the movie with them returning back to present day. Helena has brought Indy back to, let's see, I have to look up the name, back to Marion's house. So Indy was actually separated from Marion. I think I covered that before that um, he wasn't home much, so they split. And so Helena takes him back to Marion's house. Indy is now there and he is back. And Marion basically says, are you going to stick around kind of a thing? And he agrees to. So we're kind of led to believe that everything is a-okay between the two of them. And that's it. Did I miss anything pretty big?
No, I think you got it spot on for the most part. The only thing that I would um maybe say was slightly tweaked was the planes. But just long story short, both the planes malfunctioned, but because the Nazi plane was getting attacked by all of the spears from the boats, that's why that one had to crash. Whereas the kids' plane actually had a pilot sleeping in the back that he didn't know about who was able to maneuver the plane around, and that's why they were able to land safely and use that to get back to present day. So aside from that, I think you got a spot on.
There's a couple of like other small things that happen throughout the movie. Um, I think they give, I can't rem I apologize if I'm wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure Shia LaBeouf was his son in the fourth movie. And he references his son in this movie, the new one, saying that, if he could go back in time with the dial of destiny, what would he do? And he had said he would go back in time and tell his son to not enlist in the army. Um, because it was a sore subject because his son enlisted to upset Indy, not because necessarily that he just wanted to. Although it could be a mix of those two. Maybe he wanted to. Indy didn't give his blessing, and then he just upset his dad. But um, you know, the time war is not good. It's not 100% guarantee that, if you get shipped off to war, that you'll come back and come back alive. And that was Indy's fear. He said that, if he were to have one last moment or to go back in time and tell his son, he wouldn't make it home. And so that's about it from as far as wrapping up stuff from his family.
Yeah, well, he did say that essentially the son went to war out of spite and then died in the war, and then Indy's wife was inconsolable with the loss, and Indy just didn't know how to handle it, and that was the reason for their separation.
Oh, I thought it was because he wasn't home very much, but that is
That
definitely
could have been part of it too, but that's what Indy was saying in this film.
all right. So we covered the movie. So I've been talking a lot, and I need to catch up a little bit. So, what did you think of the film?
I really enjoyed it. I have not, so full transparency here, I have seen the first and second movie. We started to watch the third one, but we just didn't have enough time to actually finish that movie before going to theaters for this one. So I have not seen movies 3 and 4. I skipped right from 2 to number 5. I don't really feel like I was missing anything. The only teeny tiny thing that I could kind of tell was missing was, and you see this in the trailer, the "go get him, Indiana Jones," or whatever he says, the cab driver that's his friend. I don't know who that guy is, but it seems like they've been on some adventures or something before. And so that's kind of just some context that I was missing, but it really didn't detract from the movie for me. Um, and there wasn't really anything else that I felt like was really like puzzling or confusing because I've missed those other 2 movies. So I appreciate it being able to just jump right in and still enjoy it. This was one of those times where we had a popcorn bucket that was almost gone before the movie started, and I thought, okay, I'll just find like a dull moment or something to go get some more popcorn. And there wasn't one. I had to go the whole rest of the movie without going to get more popcorn because the movie really never slowed down. It was a pretty fast-paced movie the whole time. It kept my attention. Uh, there was, I could recognize some things from the trailer, but like you said, in terms of when they're parachuting, I didn't really understand when I was watching the trailer that that's what it would lead to in the actual movie. So there was still a lot of suspense and surprise left in the movie that wasn't in the trailer. So I really appreciate that. I thought the de-aging was pretty good. There's one little thing that kind of bothered me, but I don't know how you would fix this, and I kind of feel like you can't, which was when they did the de-aging, so that first like 15, 20 minutes or whatever of the film, where they're doing the train chase, trying to get that dagger at first and stuff. Indiana Jones looked young, but it was his current voice, so he sounds old. I don't know how you could make him sound like his young self again, if that's even possible. So it's kind of one of those things of, I think they did a good job making him look young, but the voice didn't necessarily match the body. Uh, the only way that I could see that you could fix that would be if they were to, instead of doing the de-aging, if they were to like recast somebody to play his younger self. And I really would not have liked that. So I'm glad they stuck with it the way that it is. Um, yeah. There was lots of action, which was great. I thought that the character Helena, I see her kind of as a main character. I feel like Indy was main character for about half, and she was main character for maybe around half. I feel like they kind of shared the screen. Her character was just annoying enough, but not over the top in terms of, being money hungry and not really caring about family. And, seeing her progression towards the end of the movie, actually wanting to save Indiana Jones and bring him back home and stuff. So I felt like she had a nice character arc. I thought that Teddy was a good supporting role. He had some neat little quirks and things that and skills that he was able to do. I think him being able to fly the plane as well as he did was pretty far-fetched, but I mean, it's kind of one of those things of if Fast and Furious can get away with all of their crazy stunts, I think they can get away with a kid learning how to fly a plane when he has so many other skills. So I'm gonna give that one a pass. The the only other thing that I guess was something maybe that I didn't like as much because I did really enjoy the film as a whole was when they were diving down to the ship so that they could, in their eyes, they were going to get the other half of the dial, but really what they found was an artifact telling them where to find the other half of the dial. The boat captain put so much emphasis on how to not get seasick or the I don't know what the term is, but like the pressure sickness, like if you go down to the sea floor and then you come back up too fast, I think it's called the bends. So he was saying, you know, like you can only be down there for 3 minutes and stuff, and we see that they're having this trouble with the eels, and I felt like there was so much emphasis put on the fact that, you know, the chances of getting sick were pretty high that it seemed weird that nobody was sick. I kept waiting for like somebody to throw up on somebody or something or pass out, and nobody really got sick or anything. It seemed like nothing came from that.
Well, it can be deadly too if you go deep and you surface too fast.
Right. But nothing happened, so it just
Right.
seems kind of weird.
Yeah, I kind of thought the same thing with how much the dude was emphasizing it.
What did you think of the movie? And then I'll give my rating after.
So while you were discussing what you thought, I was actually looking up what I had talked to you about in the car, and I was correct. So I when we were on our way home, it was Sarah, myself, and my dad, and I specifically asked my dad, I had said, you know, were there any like Easter eggs that you saw throughout this movie? And I had to explain to him what that meant. And he had said, no, I don't really look for those things. And the reason why I asked that question was because in the trailer, there is a segment where Indy and Helena are in the tomb and they like prop a stick up and they unwedge like this boulder that rolls down. And I was like, are they going to do some like small callbacks to the previous films? Because I saw that in the trailer and that was not in the movie. I kept waiting to see it and it never came. So I wonder if that got left on the cutting room floor, which
Maybe
is,
it's a deleted scene.
well, what sucks about it is I looked at the original trailer and I looked at the trailer that came out 2 months ago, and both of those trailers had that scene in it. And so I think that's a little unacceptable to promote that so much because you don't it was literally a split second of the trailer. And so I think uh if it's not in the movie, it wouldn't kill you to cut that part of the trailer. But I do not believe I missed it. I feel like I was looking for it the whole movie and I did not see a boulder that they unwedged and had it roll.
Yeah, I don't recall that happening either.
So that was there. I'll get the negatives out of the way. One of them is when we started off the movie in the past. So like the picture behind me, and also the young Harrison Ford behind Sarah. There were times where I felt like I was looking at a video game because obviously they're digitizing the face for the de-aging. That's obvious. But there were times where it looked amazing, and then there were times where I was having a rough time watching it because it looked kind of messy. I think if they would have, I don't know, maybe given it another month of work, maybe it would have been a little bit better. Maybe if I watch this movie on DVD, I won't be able to tell because of the low definition. But uh, I
Do you
think
think the voice not matching the age hurt that?
oh, definitely. I mean, it so not only did the CGI pull me out with that a little bit, or the de-aging, but the voice did too. There was a good handful of times where it sounded like Harrison Ford was able to project his younger self with his voice, but there was definitely some other ones where it was like I can hear the older Harrison Ford coming through with the voice. I do not believe it was somebody else trying to sound like Harrison Ford. I'm convinced that was him, and he was just voice acting. So, a couple of issues with that. Um, when I watch the trailer and we see the scene where he's like riding the horse and he's going through the city, it's really weird because from the trailer, it looks like that whole environment is CGI. And when I watched it in the theater, it looked like that whole segment was CGI. And I feel like that could have been a very easy place to have a city block. Excuse me, hiccups. Just have a city block, make it look normal so that all the other stuff that is CGI doesn't look so CGI. Because we all know it wasn't Harrison Ford on the horse. That was definitely digitized. So there's a good handful of things that just seemed very messy with the CGI. And unfortunately, a lot of that's in the very beginning of the film. So it kind of sets a little bit of a misleading bar, I guess we'll call it. Like,
I'm curious if the horse was even real because if you think about just the practicality of the horse, like it looked real, but to put a horse through all those different things that was happening, that'd be really intense and unpredictable.
guaranteed most, if not all. He was probably, whether it was Harrison Ford, he was probably on it a couple of times, and then most of it was done by a stunt double, but guaranteed it was probably basically on like a bull riding machine. That's probably essentially what it was. Um, but yeah, the just the way the movie kind of started was visually it made me feel a little like I hope not, I hope everything isn't this way, and it wasn't. Um it's just it's a weird thing to have that kind of first impression and then things actually get better. Uh one thing I appreciated about this film is that it had the courage, and I'm looking at you, Fast 10. It had the courage to kill people in this movie. I was surprised how many people died. The body count might be more than two hands. Um, they, like I mentioned, they did a school shooting, which was once we actually say that out loud, it's kind of weird to understand that they did that, but they
It
shot.
wasn't your typical, like, what if you say school shooting, you think of mass shooting. It wasn't a mass crowd shooting.
Right, but it's
It was a shooting that happened in a school, yes.
yes. Well, if okay, that's a whole other subject. I just think it's kind of a weird place to do that, especially with what's been going on in the world. But anyways, so they like killed two professors slash workers of the school. There's a handful of bad guys that were killed. Indy's friend was killed. Uh, I thought Indy was going to be killed for a little bit. Didn't know if they really had the courage to go that far, but I'm glad that they didn't kill him off. Um, let's see. So I really liked that there were.
How many soldiers, goodness, how many soldiers died on the train from the turret gun at the very beginning?
Yep. You want to know something interesting about that? And I think I'd have to watch it a second time to confirm this. But so in the beginning, when they're running on the train, like Sarah mentioned, there's this turret. The turret gets hit, I think, by like a missile or something, and then it like turns and then it's stuck in one spot and it's just constantly firing. And because I'm a little bit of a nerd, I was like, when they get beyond this point, is Disney going to care enough to have that gun keep firing? and I didn't hear the gun firing, and I didn't see any shots being fired by that gun when they walked past it. And so I kind of wonder if that was a misstep or it ran out of bullets. I guess that would probably be their excuse, but that's quite the coincidence that just as they get past it is when it runs out of ammo. But that was another just a nitpicky thing that I thought was kind of interesting for choices. Um, there's a lot of chase sequences. I think there's like 3 or 4. And then the last thing that I didn't really care for is that every time that it seemed like the heroes were making progress, that the villains had to show up. I get that that probably has to happen to have this like cat and mouse chase the whole movie, but um, I don't know. I think by the time the movie was over, I was like, if there's one more that something that would have happened, my threshold probably would have been met. I did like the twist where they went back in time and it was actually successful. You know, it wasn't just a gimmick. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Um, and that they actually went back in time. They met Archimedes, and then they were able to come back. But overall, I would say it was a very entertaining movie. I didn't really feel bored at all. Um, so I thought it was really good. I look forward to watching it again, actually.
There's
I
not
think,
many movies that I'd say I would watch again, and this is one I could see myself watching repeatedly.
yeah. And well, it's also kind of nice because this what you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm right. This was your first Indiana Jones movie in theaters.
Correct.
Yeah, so I remembered seeing Crystal Skull. I forget what year that came out. I'm gonna look it up real quick. Um, and the reason why I'm looking it up is because 2008, so 15 years ago, is the when the last one came out. The
Been a
last
long
one.
time.
Yeah, but so that's when I was a sophomore in high school, I think. And so I remember being in the movie theater and being like, is this over yet? Because I was so bored. I want to go back and watch it as an adult to see if maybe it's a little bit better, but based on the reception, it wasn't very good. And I think it was nice that this movie came out and, in my opinion, left a solid ending for the Indiana Jones films. I think they put enough care into this where it was a pretty good adventure for him, and it's a decent way to go out. I feel like there was more care put into this one than Star Wars. But I would say it's my favorite summer movie so far. There's
What
definitely,
what rating would you give it?
oh, I was getting there, but um I would say, with all things considered, I would give it a very high 8 out of 10. Uh the movie was very good. Like I said, I would watch it again, but it's not perfect. There is some things that were a little bit unfinished in my opinion, and I think if they would have polished it up a little bit and maybe had one more unique scene, because like I said, we kind of could predict that the villains were going to show up. Like when they were at the market, I was like, the villains are going to show up. Like, what are the odds? And I guess we never tell this dude the odds, but what are the odds that the bad guys see Indy and the crew head in one direction and go at the exact same port that they went to? I guess they must have found their boat that they went out with and then it was like, oh, they're there, kind of a thing. Do you know what I'm saying?
I feel like they just followed them there, but why Indiana Jones didn't see them being followed the whole time and the boat that the bad guys had magically had enough gas in it too? I guess those are kind of two things that would like, you know?
And the boat that so and also when Indy and the group, our heroes, when they were heading towards shore, Indy made a point. He said, "How much gas do we have?" And the kid said the tank is full. And so Indy like floored it and they headed in the direction. The bad guys, weren't they like, correct me if I'm wrong, because I am wrong a handful of times. When they were getting ready to like go in the direction that the heroes went in, weren't they getting like a personal boat ready? Like they were cranking the motor?
I don't remember cranking the motor specifically, but yeah, for whatever reason, the dynamite made the major ship not, um,
Functional?
yeah.
But that's my question, is because when the kid sees them on the dock, they have a big boat. Either that wasn't their boat and their boat was off screen, because I didn't see the small boat. I just saw them standing next to a big one.
Well, and somehow they got their van back again,
Oh,
even though they're in a completely different country.
I didn't catch that one. Um, but some of that, yeah, the boat thing didn't fully make sense to me, because like if a big boat needed a full tank of gas, I can't imagine one of those small ones. Are they gas powered? I don't have a boat.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, so then
Yes.
I don't see that small personal boat being able to go the same distance. But maybe
Uh,
I'm just naive
Being
about
able to go
boats.
the same distance, maybe, but being able to go that same speed, no. I think that Indy's boat would have gone much faster and eventually would have been out of sight to the point where you can't follow them anymore.
Gotcha. What rating would you give it?
Um, I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10. We've talked before when we were initializing our rating system that a 10 out of 10 does not necessarily mean that the movie was absolutely perfect and without flaws, but for me, a 10 out of 10 is a movie that was entertaining. I enjoyed it. There were really no dull moments. It's a movie I would watch over and over again, and I don't think I would really be bored. There are a lot of little tiny nitpicky things here or there that, we could find all over the place, I'm sure, even ones that we hadn't talked about already. Um, but I'm no movie's gonna be perfect. And the entertainment value for this one is very high for me. And uh one thing that I struggle with a lot more than Jeremy does with movies is when a movie is too complicated and it's really hard for me to understand or follow what's going on, it gets me very frustrating and I lose interest very quickly. And the fact that I did not have that with this film, despite it being the fifth in its series and I didn't feel lost, I really appreciate that. So, from all of those aspects, I'm giving this one a 10 out of 10. Stamp of approval.
A Sarah stamp of approval.
Sarah stamp of approval. Yes.
Maybe we should make an actual stamp to put on the reviews. I don't know. Maybe that's in progress. But yeah, it was a very fun movie. Small things to complain about, but I think what's also interesting about the fact that we liked it so much was that at least I read and heard some fairly like negative things about the movie, because it released like a month or a month and a half early at some festival or whatever, and it had some early reviews and they were not very good. And so there was a big fear about this movie not doing well. And I'm not as invested in Indiana Jones as I am Star Wars, as far as like understanding lore and remembering all these little things that uh, they need to keep straight. But I thought it was very good. No, no super big complaints.
I
Uh,
am curious to see what a movie has to do to get a 9 or a 10 out of you, but we'll find out sooner or later.
yeah, it'll be interesting. Who knows? Maybe I'll never give it up. um, Yeah. Anything else you want to say about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny?
Go see it. You're gonna love it.
I can't wait to buy it. I know I'm looking forward to it. All right, so if you enjoy this type of video, being a movie discussion video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We are doing a lot of these this summer and the rest of the year, quite frankly. And there's tons of movies we are looking forward to seeing. So make sure to check back here for our discussions about them. Drop us a like if you liked the video, and drop us a comment letting us know what you thought of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Did you like it? Did you not like it? What things did you notice? Were there some Easter eggs in the movie? I didn't really catch any because, again, I'm not huge into indie, so I can't really tell. Let us know if you saw some, because I love knowing about those in movies. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.